Hey, it's Astrid here with roseanddaggersoundworks. I am trying something a little bit different today, so you'll probably see two cameras in operation. One pointed at my beautiful face and the other pointed at this beautiful instrument. Anyways, to pull it onto the main camera here, this is a bass that I'm working on for a client. It is a Crescent, which is a brand I'm not familiar with, but chances are one of the lawsuit era Fender clones, something coming out of Japan, I suspect. Of course, it's old enough and has had enough work done on it. Some of it done by me. I did some hardware swaps and whatnot. You'll notice the string tree does not match because we swapped all the hardware for gold and we put a new pick guard and pickup in here already. But what we're going to do today is we're going to deal with the neck. And I don't know if you can see from this angle. The neck is obviously quite a bit backbowed, which is a problem. It is also twisted, and the backbow is fixable. The twisting, I suppose you could strip the finish, soak the wood, and rig up some kind of jig to counter twist it, but this is something we're doing on the cheap, so none of that's going to happen. I wanted to try an experiment on this instrument with the owner's blessing, obviously. So what we're going to do is first we're going to correct that back bow, and the next thing I want to do is I want to try to get this playable with the twist in the neck. It's going to be weird, but if what's here translates to real life, then it should work. Anyways, let's get started here. So we have on this, just to show you, a pretty standard inset truss rod, adjustable at the neck. Is going to be a metric, or at least that's where the safe money is. So I've got my metric Allen key out here that's more or less universal. So I'm just going to try for fit. I'm also going to use my glasses because that's a thing you should do. I think that is a little. Try the next one down. Yeah, that's way too loose. Okay, that appears to be engaging. So let me just give this a few turns counterclockwise here. Because what we're doing is we're loosening the truss rod. It has been over tightened, that or the wood has warped in the opposite direction you would expect, which are both possibilities. I suspect it's just been over tightened by a previous owner. So we're going to loosen it up a bit, and I'm going to see. We've still got a ways to go. Oh, just to show you how bad this neck is to begin with. Those are all dead frets. You get up to about fret 6, you can kind of get a note, but that's not a very usable bass for most bass players. So we are going to go ahead and give this some more loosening. You'll notice that I am leaving the strings. This is an area of contention among guitar techs, because many people want to loosen the strings to make the truss rod easier to turn. Granted, it does that, but the other thing it does is it means that you've adjusted the next position, and if it's not under stress, you're not going to get an accurate representation of where that neck is. Now, I may have to loosen the strings on this one because it's a pretty major adjustment we're having to do here, and just to get the right amount of turns in without exhausting myself, I may need to do that, but let's try doing a few more this way and just see how that works. Well, we're already looking a lot better there. Let me test it again. So we're still buzzing out about the same spot, but it looks like we've got less of a back bow now. So let me adjust this. Actually, you know what? I am going to loosen these strings up. I'm not going to take them off all the way, but I will loosen them. I'm just going to flip these out of the string tree as well. just so we got things nice and slack here and I can really get the wrench in without worrying about the tension of the strings ruining my work. So now we can basically get this in there without having to worry about hitting strings too much. This is one advantage to having a L-shaped Allen key. It's just that it's lower profile. Matter of fact, I think I may try to find one now that I've got my size. I probably have a wrench that I can use, so I will be back. Okay, so I think we have a winner. Meant to say, by the way, please disregard the AC that's running in here. I try not to run it while I'm filming just because it's noisy, but it is hot as a campfire starting contest indoors in hell right now. So I'm gonna keep it running. So let's work on loosening this a bit more. I think we have to go in the other way with it. Okay, that looks like it's straightening without the tension, but we're still backbowed a little bit here. So let me adjust this a bit more. It's one thing I wish that there was just a power tool that you could use for this that would just slowly turn this without just having to constantly pull it in and pull it out. Because as well as being tedious, it, each time it goes in and out, it's more and more likely to strip the actual truss rod nut inside of there. And once that is stripped, good luck adjusting the truss rod without actually replacing it, which is not something I'd recommend because you have to rip the whole fretboard off. Yeah, we're still backbowed. Let me try that other wrench again. Whatever reason, this one seems to be engaging and the other isn't. Maybe that other one is a standard and it's just not quite the same size. Okay, I found a newish one, but I think it's too big. I also found another one. Yeah, this may be the one to use. So let me try that one. It's feeling a lot more. Is that too big? Seems to be engaging with the nut. Oh, that's definitely engaging with the nut. So the other thing is sometimes if you get too enthusiastic with these things, they will actually stick. And they're sometimes tricky to get out. Let me see if I can do this the other way. Now that I have proof of concept here. Yeah, that seems to be working good. We're getting there. Some slow going. I don't think I've ever had to turn a truss rod this much. This instrument, incidentally, was a wall hanger, which is why it's, so off, because it was not playable for quite a while, I'm sure. This particular bass player is fond of picking up cheap basses from wherever one gets cheap basses, and end up having me fix them. No, not always, but I have fixed quite a few of his basses for him, which is largely self-interest. He is the bassist in my band right now. If I haven't doxed him too much. I'm hoping that this is a repairable back bow. It may be that this is a one-way truss rod, and that it just doesn't loosen enough to actually make the neck playable, but we will see. That's why we're experimenting with it, because if nothing else, it is a learning curve for me. This is the first actual back bow I've worked on. Usually it's much more common because of string pressure for them to bow this way rather than that way, but this one is backbowed, which means that, I think I said this already, it means either the wood has warped in an unexpected direction due to, temperature, moisture, what have you, or that it was over tightened at some point and somebody just, applied a hammer fix to it and then found it was worse, and then just kind of gave up on it, which is what happens with a lot of these type of instruments because they're cheap. You don't want to throw the money or the time into properly diagnosing them and properly getting them set up. And what I'm doing, as I said, is not exactly a proper job because the neck is still going to be twisted at the end of the day. Which is, you know, if you notice it, it can be a bit unsightly, but in normal playing positions, most people will not. You usually have to sight down the neck and notice that the nut doesn't quite line up with the base of the neck is the easiest way to spot a twist. But you may also notice while you're playing that certain strings are buzzing out and other ones are way off the fretboard, and that can be an indication too. Or if certain, you know, low frets buzz on one side of the neck but not the other. So, let's take a look. Better. Let's get some tension on there and see how we do. I'm getting some kind of a tone. It's still buzzing out, but I'm hearing that fundamental tone on the lowest frets here. So let me get everything up to pitch and we'll see how we did. Okay, so we still got buzzing. We've got a lot less buzzing than before. So let me keep it at tension now that we've got the correct rod, or Allen key, I mean. And let's try to give this a few more twists with the tension on. Because if this doesn't work and the neck remains backbowed despite all my best efforts with the truss rod, then what I'm probably going to have to do is just raise the saddles up as high as I can just to clear those low frets and deal with a bass that's essentially unplayable on the high frets. I don't know, some bass players may like that. In theory, you're supposed to have a little bit of backbow in your setup just for neck relief so that strings have more room to vibrate in the middle where they're vibrating the furthest from center. But in practice, I find the amount that you need is pretty negligible. A perfectly straight neck will play just about as well as a slightly backbowed one. Let me sight this. I still definitely have a back bow. Piece of hair in my mouth. So let's see if this will turn any more. It feels like it's essentially loose in there. In which case, we may be going to plan B. And I feel it definitely slotting in the nut there because I have to exert a little bit of effort to pull it out. I'm wondering also if that wouldn't really fix much except making the saddle travel a little bit better. I was thinking also if I did a reverse neck pocket angle, it might help, but I mean, for one, that would be a funky thing to be doing, and for another, it would just lower the place where I have to get to the saddles to. It wouldn't really affect the action on the higher strings because it's still going to be as high as it needs to be to clear the lower frets. So let's take another sight on this. I mean, it's better than it was. It's not saying much. Let me just try with this. Maybe I can get a little more leverage. I don't think leverage is what I need, though. Maybe it is. This seems to be stiffer when I turn it. Let me just try this one, just in case. Oh. Hey, that might be it. Let's see if we can't. Okay. Okay. Oh, Was I just not adjusting the nut before? It's weird, maybe it was catching on the pocket. But that definitely is feeling the right amount of stiffness now. That's what she said. So folks, this is just a reminder to me and to you that, make sure you've got a net wrench that's fitting snugly in your truss rod socket, because this is definitely moving now. Definitely moving. Not quite straight yet, but a few more turns should do it. This wrench, incidentally, if any of you happen to have a Crescent base from this approximate time period, this is, I believe, the wrench that came with the Indonesian Squire Jazzmaster that actually is right here behind me for the truss rod adjustments, so that, it's a standard metric size. I couldn't tell you how many millimeters. I'm guessing probably about 5 or 6. Actually, looks to be a 5. So 5 millimeter truss rod nut on this one. It's the pocket on that is a little bit ugly, but without trying to fabricate some kind of truss rod cover and drill holes or whatever, that it's the best it's going to get. And I mean, let's be honest, nobody's really looking that close at the base of your headstock most of the time. So let's sight that. That is looking pretty good. Let me retune this up to pitch and see where we are. This instrument could also use some fretwork, but again, A, something I'm not really set up for, and B, something that, my client is really not going to want to pay for on a bass this cheap, which I get. So, at some point, I will get the proper tools and start probably practicing on my own guitars, because if I mess up there, then, I'm only upset at myself. And then if I get good enough, then we'll go and work on other people's instruments. Now, okay, a lot of buzz still, so let's do it some more. I'm not sure if this really is fixable, just because, there tends to be like a drop off on the neck right about fret 7 or 8 there. In other words, as opposed to being an even bow, it seems to be more of kind of a bend. But I'm going to give it a little bit more wiggle on the truss rod here and just see what we can do about that. Because, if nothing else, we should be able to get it playable on the low frets. And that's most of what you want out of a bass. I'm wondering also if what could be happening is if they just used a shorter, like a guitar length truss rod in here, because it is a short scale bass. So if the truss rod ended early, that might explain why we're doing all this adjustment and it doesn't seem to affect the upper frets. And while I've never heard of cheap brands doing that, it certainly is within the realm of possibility, with cost-cutting measures being what they are. And unfortunately, the only way to figure that out for sure would be to take the entire neck apart. Which again, not in our price range. So we're gonna just continue doing this and get it as good as we can. Yeah, I really think we're just gonna have to adjust from there. So what I'm gonna do first, I think, is I'm gonna shim this nut. So I am going to find my bank agent's card, because that's a great thing to be defacing for fixing instruments, right? I guess I should probably hide that from the camera. So we're just going to shim this nut up a little bit and see what kind of difference that makes. See if we can coax it out here without having to really pry at it. Nothing like the right tool for the job. And this is nothing like the right tool for the job. Here we go. Oops, I managed to get that entirely off camera, and I apologize, but that's what we're looking at with the nut shim. So now, let's put the actual nut back in and see how we're doing. Boy, that is just a tight, tight fit. And the nut is a couple millimeters smaller than the actual slot in the neck, which leads me to believe it's not the original nut. However, it is close enough for, you know, what the player wants out of this bass, which is to look pretty and to be, you know, decently playable. There should be plenty of space there. So I'm just turning these posts clockwise. This is really how you work with just about any S-style bridge, is the two small slug screws move up and down the saddle, which adjusts the saddle's height on the bridge plate. So I'm just trying to get this to a relatively high but even height. We're still buzzing. Okay. Okay, so that is only buzzing on the first two frets now. Well, open in the first fret. So that second fret is really what's causing the issues. But we're getting close, so let me raise this up and just see if we can't do this without filing down that fret, which I'd like to try to avoid. Was a bullfrog, was a good friend of mine. Okay. This is gonna freaking look ridiculous by the time I'm done with it. But you know what? If it looks ridiculous and it's still playable, I say job well done. So let's see if we can't just take a little file to that. Okay, so we're down to using nail files, folks. Just a reminder, this is not something I would do for your average customer off the street. This is just something that my buddy and I decided we wanted to try to see if we could make this wall hanger playable. So I'm just going to very carefully, keeping this file as flat as possible on the top of the fret, just try to take some of that excess fret off. There's a whole industry of fret crowning files that one could use. Let me get where I'm in the camera here. See, I'm just kind of trying to take that top off of the fret. Now let me just put my A string back here and tune it back up and see where we're at. Yeah, that's about as low as I dare take that one, I think. But you know what? It's the second. I hope I didn't mess myself up. It's that second fret that needs to come down, isn't it? Yeah. Looks like it might have done something. Let's see. Well, you know what? Since we're kind of committed to the bit here, it's not going to be as quite as easy as I'd anticipated, but I think I've got those frets about as even as they're going. I think what I'm going to do, since I don't want it any higher on the bridge, is I'm going to put another shim under the nut. So I'm just going to take that where I cut it before and try to go a little bit narrower this time. So it fits in the hole a little easier. That's what she said. Get it out of your system. We're going to put this all right, come on. Yeah, a lot of that fall off is happening in that first fret. I may take it up a little more because I don't know if you can see that. Let me take it up to my more detailed camera here. But that fret falls away pretty sharply toward the nut. So I think I'm going to try raising it up a little bit more, because I think that may be the majority of the problem, is that it's sloping away there. And if that is the case, we should be able to make it fairly playable by raising that nut and making that fret essentially a normal height through the ass backward methodology, but it should work. Got an hour of time on this already. Gonna do a bit of fast forwarding, I'm sure. That looks promising. That is a relatively clear note on the A string, folks. I think we have proof of concept. So what I do, I'm probably going to speed run this, but I'm going to raise up all those other saddles. I'm going to adjust the intonation. And I'm just going to see where we're at that point. Rose oil to enhance your fretboard's natural beauty here. And I'm just going to give it a good dump. This is a dry neck. We're going to make it sparkle a little bit. So much sparkle. It's like frickin' Rainbow Dash threw up on this thing. Okay. There we go. See, now most of our scuff marks have kind of disappeared. Even down at this area where we filed the fret before. So, that is still pretty oily on the surface, but we're going to leave it that way. We're going to let that oil set in. And meanwhile, I'm going to get this instrument set up the rest of the way. So let me get my strings back in place. By the way, this is like the one and only time I would do this like rapid raising of saddles. Usually you want to kind of do it incrementally. But now I've just got a big distance to cover as far as where it was set up and where it wants to be set up. So I'm doing the hair on this one as opposed to the tortoise. Y'all know Aesop, don't you? Was that Aesop? Or was that somebody else? Leave it in the comments below if you know. That's close enough. Let's get a little bit of a feel for how this is playing right now. I'm just wiping my excess oil off of the back of the neck where it dripped. Because I got a little enthusiastic with the amount of oil, but honestly it's better to err on that side. Okay, I'm going to file that third fret under the G string there. Just a tad buzzy just in that position, so I know it's this fret. It's going to be more playable than before. That's all I can promise. This is honestly something I would tell a regular customer, you know, just cut your losses, but I happen to kind of like this bass in a quirky kind of way. It reminds me a lot of old instruments that I've played. It has this beautiful green burst color, which you don't see a lot. It is a plywood body, so it is heavy as a tank. And you can actually see the plies in the cutaways, which I will show you here in a second. Like there, for example, you can see the plies, and then in the back, hopefully you guys can see that, but there are definitely layers visible through the transparent paint there. And of course it would be visible around the edges if it was transparent paint there, but it's not. Alright, time to do it again. I don't want to bring the nut any higher than that, I know that. So we're going to have to try to hammer down this third fret, which seems to be where most of the buzzing is taking place. Hammer or file it down to where it's not buzzing anymore, or at least not buzzing uncontrollably. Short scale basses kind of have the odds stacked against them as far as buzz go, but we'll do what we can. Actually, let's just go ahead and use this as a pad here. Let's just file this one down a little bit too. Let's get everything up to pitch and see what it sounds like. Again. We may just need to raise those two upper strings. At this point, I don't want to do any more fretwork. Let's actually raise those two up a little bit too. Maybe we can get these something resembling not buzzing. All right, so not perfect, but those lower frets are playable. Let me just those higher frets may be slide material, which is, you know, it's just what it is. This is freaking ridiculous. This is so... but you know what? It's how it's gotta be, I think, to be playable down there. I don't think there's any way around it. We gotta keep the action this high. What I am gonna do is adjust the intonation, because I'm sure that's way off. This may just end up being out of intonation entirely, because I don't think there's room enough for these saddles to get where they should be with this kind of action. I think that's as far forward as I dare go with it. So yeah, I mean, it's a bass, technically. Let me try tuning this up properly and just see what I can do with it. Yes, that's about as good as I can get intonation. It sucks. But on, let's put some crunch on. So in conclusion, did it work? Sort of. This is definitely a more playable instrument than it was when I got it. So in that sense, problem solved. Honestly, I really dig the tone of this pickup. I did not normally gel with short scale basses. I'm a big 34-inch fan unless it's a bass 6, but I think these are thicker strings. That or maybe just the higher action that was necessitated by setting it up this way is making it play really well for me, which means it's probably a little bit tense for the person who actually owns it, but certainly more playable for him than when I got it. So I'm going to chalk this one up for a success. It's a beautiful little bass, weighs a ton because of the plywood body. Probably it's all that glue weighing it down. But overall, nice little instrument to work on. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. If you didn't, I hope you can teach me something in the comments below. But anyways, till next time, this is Astrid with Rose and Dagger Soundworks. Farewell.